I didn't know you could feel unwelcome at your own wife's funeral until my daughter leaned in and said it. You shouldn't be here. Her voice was soft, but the knife landed clean. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. She didn't flinch, didn't even look at me after, just turned toward the altar like I was one of the ghosts we were meant to be mourning. My hands curled around the armrest of the pew. Martha's photograph sat between two vases of lilies, the kind she hated. She always said lilies smelled like endings. Get me sunflowers, she'd joke, so it feels like summer one more time. Sunflowers weren't anywhere. I watched as Adrian stood beside her new husband, Greg, with that polished, smug look I'd come to dread. He hadn't even known Martha a year, and here he was, front and center, leading prayers like some kind of grief ambassador. My own seat was in the back, behind a stranger's walker, and beside a child playing games on his phone. No one offered to move. I wanted to stand. I wanted to shout. But all I could think was, this is how they erase you, not with violence, but with distance. After the service, I approached Adrian outside, beneath the shade of the church maple where Martha and I once stood for wedding photos. Did you mean what you said in there? She didn't even blink. Dad, please don't make a scene. A scene? My wife, your mother, just died. You made your choices, remember? Her tone snapped like brittle ice. You gave the house to me. You said you trusted me to protect everything. So don't act surprised that we made some necessary changes. What does that mean? What changes? She glanced at Greg. He stepped forward like a lawyer about to deliver a ruling. Stephen, with all due respect, the house isn't yours anymore. The deed transfer was notarized months ago. We assumed you understood. My mouth went dry. I never signed anything. Adrian shook her head. It was your idea. You said, take care of things if I go first. And now Mom's gone and I'm still alive. Greg smiled like a man who didn't care. And we're doing what's best for you. You don't need that big house anymore. You need rest, peace. I looked at my daughter, the girl I once stayed up all night rocking through fevers, who once cried when I missed her fifth grade spelling bee. And now, she stared through me like I was a stubborn tenant overdue on rent. If anyone's listening, I whispered under my breath, don't make the mistake I did. Don't hand trust to people just because they share your blood. I walked to my truck parked in the gravel lot, the same rusted Ford Martha used to call old reliable. I sat behind the wheel, keys untouched in the ignition, heart rattling in my chest like loose change in a glove box. Behind me the crowd laughed around Greg. He was passing out programs, smiling, shaking hands. And I was just a man no one expected to outlive the flowers. That night I didn't go home because someone else already had. I didn't feel it until the key didn't turn. That was when the grief finally collapsed into something colder. I stood there for a long time, hand on the knob like muscle memory might make the door forgive me. But it didn't. My house, our house, stared back, silent and sealed. The place Martha and I had painted twice, argued in for years, and filled with memories now scanned me like a criminal. A red dot blinked on the security camera above the porch. There was a piece of paper taped to the railing. Property under transfer review. No Mr. Mills, no mention of me at all. I pulled out my phone, no answer from Adrian. I called again, got voicemail. I left a message. Hey, it's Dad. I came home but the locks were changed. Can you call me, please? I tried to sound calm, dignified, not like someone standing in his own yard, locked out of his entire life. Greg picked up on the fourth call. She needs space, he said. She's overwhelmed. The funeral was a lot. I gripped the phone tighter. Greg, my name's not on the door. The key doesn't work. What the hell is going on? It's not your concern anymore, Stephen. The deed was signed months ago. I never signed anything. You did. Look, if you're confused, it's understandable. Grief does strange things, but Adrian is handling it now. I stared at the mailbox with our last name scratched off. You forged something, I said. I don't know what yet, but I'm not going anywhere. He sighed like I was the burden. There's no need for drama. Go get a hotel, get some rest. We'll talk later. He hung up before I could reply. I stood there in the driveway while the porch light flicked on automatically, as if mocking me. I imagined Martha behind the curtains, watching me, waiting with tea in her hand like she used to. But she wasn't there, and neither was her car or mine. I walked to the park 3 blocks away. Same place where we used to bring Adrian as a little girl, chasing geese and making us promise to push her on the swings forever. I sat at a bench near the duck pond. My coffee, still warm from the gas station, sat untouched beside me. That's when it hit me slow and sharp. It wasn't just about grief. It wasn't just about them moving on too fast. It was about that moment 2 months ago when Adrian came over with wine and tears, saying she was worried about the paperwork. She asked for the deed, just for safekeeping. And I, the fool I'd become, handed it over. I thought I was protecting her, but I was arming her. The stars blurred as I leaned forward, elbows on knees, and whispered to no one. I don't think she ever planned to let me back in. And that's when I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a quiet execution, and I was the last one to know I'd been buried. Grief is a fog, but betrayal clears it like fire. I parked outside the bank and sat there for a while, gripping the wheel like I was bracing for impact. That building had always been a place of trust. When Martha and I bought the ranch, Robert Jenkins handed us our first loan agreement with a firm handshake and said, "You're in good hands here." Today, his handshake felt like a cold dish towel. "Stephen," he said, motioning me inside, "I wasn't expecting you." I didn't expect to be here either, but apparently I don't own my home anymore. He swallowed hard. "Let's sit down." We stepped into his office, same faux wood desk, same dusty photo of his golden retriever. But now, he wouldn't meet my eyes. His fingers hovered over the keyboard before typing something. I pulled the records after I saw the property transfer come through. "I figured you reach out eventually." "You figured right." He spun the monitor around. There it was, a clean digital deed transfer, all the boxes checked. Signatures, mine, Martha's. Witnessed by a notary I didn't recognize. Dated 4 months ago. "I didn't sign that," I said flatly. "Neither did Martha." "She was in the hospital that week," I added. My voice sharp, could barely hold a pen, let alone write her full name. I know." Robert rubbed the back of his neck. "Look, Greg brought in the paperwork, said it was just formalizing what you discussed, that you and Adrian wanted to secure the estate. I trusted him." "You trusted Greg?" He winced. "I trusted the file. It looked official, notarized, witnessed." I leaned forward. "So you didn't think to call me, verify anything?" He looked like a man who just realized he helped someone rob their own mother. "I thought it came from your family, your daughter's husband. Everything seemed legit." I tapped the screen with one knuckle, pointing to the signature. "That's not Martha's hand. That's not mine either. It's a copy, a forgery." Robert slumped back in his chair. "Stephen, I swear I didn't mean to." "You didn't mean to, but you did." Silence stretched between us, like a rubber band pulled too tight. Finally, he said, "If there's an investigation, if someone asks, I'll tell them what I know." "You'll need to do more than that." He nodded, slowly, regretfully, like a man realizing his negligence had a body count. I stood. "Send me copies, all of it, emails, records, timestamps." "I will." "And Robert." He looked up hollow. "You've got a reputation in this town. Let's see if you can live up to it." I left without shaking his hand. My fingers felt dirty just being there. Outside, the sun was too bright. My phone buzzed with another ignored call from Adrian. I didn't answer. I stared at the screen, her name, glowing in silence, and felt something shift in my chest. Not rage, not grief, something colder, sharper. I now had a date, a document, a witness. And for the first time since the funeral, I wasn't lost. I was loading the first bullet. There's a different kind of grief that comes when you realize someone died expecting the worst and planned for it. I waited until just after midnight, parked down the road and walked the back trail through the trees. I didn't want them seeing my truck in the driveway, not after what I knew now. The shed behind the house had always been Martha's domain. Old horse gear, garden tools, her vet supplies, journals, all stacked with that compulsive neatness she was known for. She told me not to mess with it, said it was her mess. I'd honored that. Too well, it turns out. I still had the brass key. It slid into the padlock with a satisfying click. The hinges groaned as I opened the door, the scent of cedar and mildew punching out like a memory. Moonlight spilled through the dusty skylight, catching the edges of the storage bins she'd labeled in marker. I didn't even know what I was looking for. I just followed instinct. Second shelf, bottom left, a box marked tax and personal. Inside were file folders, envelopes, veterinary logs, and one old leather-bound notebook with a pressed daisy tucked inside. I paused when I saw the envelope. My name in Martha's handwriting. I sat down on an overturned bucket, heart thudding against my ribs. My fingers were slow, like they knew what was coming. The envelope held three things: a small black USB stick, a safety deposit key from First National, a letter. Stephen, if they've taken the house, that means I didn't stop them. It means they've pushed you out like I feared they would. I'm sorry. I tried to protect you, but there are things I couldn't say out loud. Not yet. The USB has backup evidence, but the important stuff is in the bank, box 318. If you've made it this far, go get it. Don't trust anyone except Helen. You'll need her. They'll lie, they'll twist everything. But you know the truth, you always have. Trust your gut. You're stronger than you think. I love you, always have. M. I didn't realize I was crying until I felt it drip onto the page. Helen. God, I hadn't thought of her in years. She moved 2 counties over after retirement. She was the one who helped us rewrite our will after Adrian got married, said it was smart to update it when property lines and emotions were shifting. Martha had known, not just suspected, known. I turned the USB over in my hand. It felt warm from where I'd held it too tightly. I didn't have my laptop, didn't trust it anyway, but I knew what I had to do. Tomorrow I'd find Helen, and I'd drive to First National, key in hand. Because my wife hadn't left behind a goodbye, she left behind a plan. Grief makes you feel alone, but sometimes the right person has been waiting for you to show up. I pulled into Helen's driveway just past 9 a.m., not knowing if she'd even want to see me. Her house looked exactly as I remembered: white lattice porch, wind chimes tapping against the breeze, and that damn rose garden still blooming in perfect rows. She was in the center of it, pruning with the same steel focus she used to have in court. Helen, I called gently. She turned, squinting through her sunglasses. Stephen Mills. Well, I'll be damned. I smiled weakly. You still talk to ghosts out here. She set the shears down, only the ones worth listening to. She hugged me, brief, sturdy, but I felt something shift when I mentioned why I was there. They didn't tell you about Martha. Her brow furrowed. What do you mean? She passed. A week ago, the funeral was. Her face went blank. They didn't tell me, she said. Then quietly, I should have known something was wrong. I reached into my coat pocket and held out the key. She said to give you this. She left me a letter, said you'd understand. Helen didn't take it right away. She looked at the brass, then at me, then slowly reached for it. She trusted very few people at the end. If she told you to come find me, it means she knew things were worse than she let on. She did, she just didn't say it out loud. We sat on her back porch, sipping too strong tea. Inside, she rummaged through her filing cabinets, the kind she never really gave up even after retiring. "I've still got your will," she said, thumbing through a folder. "Both versions, the original and the update we did after Adrian got married." She laid them side by side on the table. Then she pulled up a scanned copy I'd emailed her last night, the forged deed transfer. "Look at this," she said, pointing. "Your signature slanted the wrong way, and your wife, not even close. Look at the curl on the M. That's not Martha. That's someone imitating her from memory." I felt like my throat was closing. "And this notary here, Charlotte Langston." Helen tilted her glasses up. "She died last spring, breast cancer. I attended her memorial." I gripped the armrest of the patio chair. "They forged everything." Helen didn't flinch. "Then we forged the path back." "You really think we can undo this?" She set the papers down and looked me dead in the eye. "Stephen, you still own that land. What they've done is fraud, plain and simple. I may be retired, but I still know how to break a lie in half. I'll represent you pro bono." "What?" "I couldn't ask you." "You didn't, Martha did." That's when it hit me. I wasn't alone in this. For the first time since the funeral, since Adrian's whisper, since the cold lock on the door, I felt something steady building beneath the ache. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was resolve. I helped her stack the files back into a new folder labeled MILLS, litigation. And as I slid that folder across the table, I knew the war had already begun. I expected them to deny it. I didn't expect them to call me insane. Helen filed the paperwork like she was tightening screws, methodical, steady, deadly. Fraud, forgery, injunction. She didn't blink when she handed it to the clerk. "They'll hit back hard," she warned. "You're not just contesting property, Stephen. You're threatening a payday." I nodded. "Let them come." They did fast. 3 days later, a package showed up at Helen's office, hand-delivered by a courier. Their lawyer's letterhead dripped with rehearsed sympathy. "We are deeply concerned about Mr. Mills' mental state. Given his advanced age, recent bereavement, and inconsistent recollection of legal events, we believe it's in everyone's best interest to cease these disruptive filings until a cognitive evaluation can be performed." I read it twice, then a third time. My hands didn't shake, not out of fear anyway. "They're saying I've lost my mind," I muttered. "They're building a narrative," Helen said. "Senile widower, confused signatures, unreliable memory. That's how they'll try to bury this." I looked up at her. "They want me gone." She nodded, but not dead, just discredited. We prepared for the hearing like soldiers packing for a storm. Helen worked late into the night, going through documents, matching signature overlays, preparing exhibits. I sat across from her, reliving the last year, every odd comment, every moment Adrian changed around Greg. "How long do you think they were planning this?" I asked. Helen didn't look up. "Long enough to think they could get away with it." The courthouse smelled like floor polish and cold air. I wore my best blazer, the one Martha liked on me, and carried a folder of photos she'd taken of the ranch, in case I needed to remember what we were fighting for. Greg sat beside Adrian at the front, arms folded, lips tight. Adrian didn't look at me. I don't know if that made it better or worse. Their lawyer stood, polished, crisp. "Your Honor, this case is unfortunate. Mr. Mills is grieving. He's not in a stable condition to assert claims that were settled months ago." Helen stood without a single paper in her hand, calm, controlled. Then she dropped her voice just enough to cut through the room. "We have proof the deed was forged," she said. "We have evidence of signatures that don't match, a notary who was already dead when the document was signed, and a paper trail that leads back to the petitioner's son-in-law." The judge didn't blink. "Show me," he said. She nodded. We intend to at trial. A pause. Then petition will proceed. Hearing set for 2 weeks. No gavel bang, no drama, just the hum of something waking up. As they stood to leave, Adrian kept her eyes on the floor. But Greg looked right at me. And he smiled. Not the smile of a man who'd won, the smile of a man who thought he still could. I didn't know what scared me more, hearing her voice again, or realizing she'd known what they were capable of long before I did. Helen slid the USB drive into her laptop. Her office was quiet, blinds drawn, papers fanned out like a battlefield map. We didn't speak, not when the folder opened, not when the first audio file lit up the screen. I just listened. Martha Mills, February 3rd, 9:42 p.m. Greg came by today without Adrian, said he wanted to talk about future plans. He used words like liquidation and upscaling the land value. I asked him what he meant, and he smiled, that tight smile that doesn't touch his eyes. I don't trust him. I felt the back of my throat tighten. Next file. Stephen, too generous. He believes people earn trust by proximity, but blood doesn't mean loyalty. Helen looked over her glasses at me. She was building a record. Keep going, I whispered. File after file, day after day, Martha had documented everything: meetings, phone calls, even conversations with Adrian that made her stomach turn. One stood out above the rest. Her voice shook, but she was deliberate. March 19th. I think they're planning something with the property. Stephen would never question them, and they know it. I've started making copies, receipts, call logs, notes. If anything happens to me, Helen, I need you to protect him. He won't see it coming, but you will. My heart cracked in two. Helen froze the audio. Her jaw was clenched, face unreadable. She recorded these for me, she said. She didn't just guess what they were doing, she knew. She was dying, I said quietly, and she was still protecting me. We printed transcripts, each file time-stamped, labeled, annotated. I highlighted Martha's direct quotes, underlined any mention of Greg, the house, forged paperwork, shifting tone between her and Adrian. Helen filed pre-trial declarations before noon. We had voice, we had motive, we had the dead speaking back. I stayed after Helen left for a meeting, sitting alone with the files in front of me. I listened to one recording again, not for evidence this time, but just to hear her. You were always the heart, Stephen, but I had to be the eyes this time. That line split something open in me. I never understood how heavy silence was until I heard her voice again, steady, scared, but determined. It wasn't grief anymore. It was purpose. They took my home. They tried to take my sanity. But they forgot what it means to love someone who planned for the truth. I copied the files onto a second USB, slipped it into my coat pocket. And as I left Helen's office that night, Martha was with me, not as a memory, but as evidence. I used to think courtrooms were quiet out of respect. Now I know it's because lies make noise, but truth stills a room. Helen stood in front of the witness box like she'd never retired. Her voice was calm, but every word landed like a hammer. The woman in the chair, frail, gray-haired, wrapped in a cardigan, glanced nervously at the judge. "Mrs. Langston," Helen said, gesturing to the projected document, "is that your signature on the deed transfer of the Mills property?" The old woman shook her head. "No, ma'am, that's not mine." Helen nodded. "Were you a licensed notary at the time this was allegedly signed?" "I was, but I was also in hospice care at St. Luke's, cancer treatments. I couldn't even hold a pen that month." Gasps, whispers. My daughter shifted in her seat, face pale and still. Greg leaned forward, elbows on knees, jaw tight like a coiled spring. Helen paced slowly. "So you're saying you did not notarize this transfer?" "I couldn't have. I wasn't even home. My son has the visitor logs to prove it." Helen turned toward the judge. Exhibit 22, notarization affidavit from a woman physically incapable of signing the document in question. She paused, then pivoted back. And did anyone contact you to confirm the validity of this document? No one, not until last week when Mr. Mills's lawyer reached out. Helen let the silence hang before turning back to our table. She picked up the next file and addressed the courtroom. Your Honor, we have additional inconsistencies. Exhibit 24, a handwriting analysis comparing Mr. Mills's signature on the deed to 7 authenticated samples. Exhibit 25, Martha Mills's signature comparison. Exhibit 26, metadata logs showing document upload from an IP address registered to Gregory Langston. She didn't stop. Exhibit after exhibit, she walked the court through a trail of fraud, one brick at a time. And when she got to Exhibit 29, she dropped the final match. Gregory Langston is directly connected to Western Edge Realty Group, the firm attempting to purchase the Mills property for commercial development. We have email records, bank wires, a conflict of interest so deep it erases any pretense of care. The judge folded his hands, looked at Greg, then at Adrian. This case will proceed to full review, he said. Greg stood up suddenly, whispering something to Adrian. She didn't respond. Her eyes were locked on the floor. Shame had finally cracked through the surface. Helen sat down beside me. Her voice was low. We've got them. I didn't nod right away. I was staring at my daughter, the girl who used to leave notes on my pillow when she couldn't sleep. The girl who now sat next to a man who stole everything we'd built. I didn't want to see them ruined. I just wanted the truth to land harder than any lie they told. Helen touched my hand gently. You okay? I exhaled through my nose. I will be. Because sometimes peace isn't what you get, it's what you reclaim. And mine was almost within reach. Some victories don't feel like triumph. They feel like breathing after nearly drowning. The courtroom was packed. Neighbors, reporters, courthouse staff who suddenly found reasons to linger. The judge entered, robe billowing, and silence swept through the rows like a cold wind. I could hear every breath I took, every heartbeat. Helen sat beside me, her notes stacked neatly, hands calm on her lap. I stared straight ahead, fists clenched just tight enough to stop the tremble. The judge cleared his throat and began. After review of submitted evidence including voice recordings, witness testimony, certified notary statements, and document forensics, the court finds that the transfer of property from Stephen and Martha Mills was obtained through fraudulent means. Therefore, a pause, one heartbeat, 2. The deed is void. Ownership reverts immediately and fully to Mr. Stephen Mills. There was a collective exhale from behind me, a soft gasp, like someone had just surfaced from a long dive. My knees buckled beneath the bench for a second, not from joy, from release, from the weight of months pressing down finally lifting, if only slightly. Helen placed a hand on my arm. Greg jolted up. This is a joke. Mr. Langston, the judge said sharply, you are advised to remain silent. You may face criminal proceedings based on the findings presented in this trial. Greg turned to Adrian, desperate, but she didn't move. She sat frozen, tears tracing lines down her cheeks, not bothering to wipe them away. He tried to walk out. The bailiff stepped in his path. That was the last I saw of him, red-faced, teeth clenched, being escorted out like a schoolboy caught cheating. I didn't speak. I couldn't, not yet. Outside, the flash of cameras and the murmur of voices greeted me like a new storm. The courthouse doors felt heavier on the way out than they had going in. A reporter I didn't recognize pushed forward. Mr. Mills, any comment on what this victory means for you and your family? I didn't answer. Another voice called out. What do you plan to do with the property now that it's officially yours again? That one stopped me. I looked up not at the cameras but at the open sky above them. Clear, sharp blue, same as the day I scattered Martha's ashes. I turned to face the press. "I'll leave the door open," I said slowly, "but not unlocked." There was a beat of silence, then scribbles, flashes, murmurs. I didn't wait for more questions. Helen followed a few paces behind. "You handled that well." I didn't say what I wanted to. She raised an eyebrow, "And what was that?" I shook my head. "Nothing, that was the point." Because sometimes dignity doesn't speak loudly. It just stands quietly in the place no one thought you'd reclaim. Some mornings the silence doesn't ache anymore. It just rests with me. The house is mine again, legally, physically, spiritually. But more than that, it's hers again, too. I spent the first month after the ruling scrubbing every room, not out of anger but memory. Greg's espresso machine, gone. Adrian's framed artwork from some gallery in the city, boxed, donated. But Martha's apron still hangs on the kitchen hook. Her handwriting still labels the spice jars. And her yellow teacup, chipped at the rim, sits by the sink like she might reach for it at any moment. The willow tree in the back was her favorite. She'd sit beneath it every spring with the seed catalogs in her lap and dirt under her nails, planning flower beds like other people planned weddings. I built a bench there. New wood, strong and smooth, but the backrest is carved with her name. Not in memory of, just her name. Because this land never stopped being hers. Adrian sent a letter last week. No apologies, no excuses, just one page of ink-stained regret. She said Greg's gone, left the state, left her with debt, disgrace, and silence. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She just said, "You were right about him, about me. I hope one day we can talk again." I haven't decided if I'll write back. But every morning, I sit on that bench with her letter folded in my pocket. I drink coffee from her cup and listen to the wind move through the willow leaves. And I read her words again, not to decide, but to remember. Peace isn't forgetting. It's remembering with clarity. They tried to take everything, the house, the land, my name, my mind. But what they didn't count on was a woman who documented truth with the same care she used to wrap birthday presents. They didn't expect a man who, even in his grief, still knew how to follow breadcrumbs left in love. The garden's blooming again, not just the flowers but me in a way. Some mornings I see neighbors pause on the road out front. They look up, then move on, like something sacred lives here again, and maybe it does. Maybe justice is the soil. Maybe love is the rain. Maybe legacy is what grows after both. I don't keep the front door open anymore. But I don't keep it bolted either. And every morning under the willow, I breathe the kind of breath that says, I came back and I remembered who I was.